Hello, this is Dixie Cravens talking to you today about HTML page elements, specifically talking about header, footer, section, article, aside, nav, and div. And here I have an example set up in a simple wireframe to show how these things might be used. And I'm going to go through them one by one and then show you a working example of a blog that I like and talk about how she uses them in her blog. So the first one up is header. And I'm looking for my notes. Okay, so the header element is a container for introductory content or a set of navigational links. It typically contains one or more heading elements, a logo or icon, and authorship information. A header is found on a website, such as a main header that repeats across the pages of a website. It can be found in a div or section. I have it in a section here. You see the header here in the section. And it can also be found in an article, as I have shown here. One thing to note about a header is this element cannot be nested within a header or a footer. So no header within a header, no header within a footer. And here I have a summary of what I've just said. So if you want to pause and take a few notes, you can, and I'll have this repeated for each element. But let's jump over to the website. This is Jennifer McGuire Inc. She does crafts. But what I wanted to talk about is the different headers that she has on her blog. She has a pretty in-depth, pretty complicated website. And so you see here she has a main header that stays with her blog no matter what page you're on. They call this in their notes, they call it a masthead. And so it includes all of these elements and including some of these things that go down the side of the page as well. And so you see that it includes navigation, it includes her social media links. But what I found interesting is within this header, she had several asides, a nav element, she had unordered list, she had multiple divs, images, and a form. And then if you look at each blog post, it also has a smaller header that starts with this, I think it starts with this add to favorites and goes all the way down to the date and the author of Jennifer McGuire. So if we go back, so this is the header. The next is the footer, and you see I have it here in the blue. Sorry, it's going to take a minute to go away too. Footer contains information about its containing element. So in this case I have a footer inside of a section, so it would have information about that section. And then I have a footer down at the bottom of the page that is for the website, and so it would contain information about the website. So the kind of information that you would have is authorship information, copyright info, contact information. It can also include a sitemap, a back to top link, as well as related information or links. And so let's jump over to Jennifer McGuire's site again and look at her footer. I'm trying to go slow so I don't make anybody sick. She's got some beautiful photographs. If you're a crafter, this is a lot of eye candy. If you're not a crafter, at least it's pretty, right? And so her footer stays pretty similar no matter what page you're on. And so it starts with this, everything in this gray bar going down to the copyright information. And so her footer includes some list and some asides, a lot of divs, really a lot of it. And it's kind of interesting to look at the code for that. So let me close your eyes. I'm going to zoom back to the top. And back to our slides. So here's the information that I just was talking about, the footer. You can have several footer elements in one in one document. Next is a section. A section element defines different sections in a document, such as chapters, headers, footers, or any other sections of the document. It is a little bit general, but not as general as a div. On this site, this section, on this wireframe that I've made here, this section could also be named main. It contains a header, a footer, an article, and an aside. It could also contain navigation, images, and tables. Here's that information. And so looking at Jennifer McGuire, the way that they have this coded, the main content of the blog is contained within a section. So this information starting with hello and going down through all of these images and all of this content and all of the links, it's all part of this main section. They don't actually call it main. And then they end the section here. And this is another section where they build this table. Oops, let me go back. Okay, the next one is article. An article element is defined that in the way that it makes sense on its own. It can stand independently from the rest of the site. So this could be an article to be distributed, an article from an external site. It could be a blog post, a forum post, a news story, or even just a comment. In this example wireframe, the article is part of this main section in a supporting role. So it could be a related article or a contributing article or even a separate piece written about one specific topic mentioned in the main section. The main thing to understand is that it can stand alone. And so my example for Jennifer McGuire is I could not find a exact instance in which she used this, but she does, let me go back to this link. She does do guest artist, and so she introduces the guest artist and then kind of turns over the blog post to them. So that would be a good example of an article, because this guest artist, guest blogger, could have the exact same article on their site and she is reposting it on hers, or vice versa. Okay, next is aside. And so the definition of an aside element is that it describes or displays content related to the content surrounding it. It can be used in most other elements, such as the header, the footer, the section, the article, and a div. In this example, there is an aside related to the article. So that's this one. It's related to this article. I mean the section, not the article. As well as an aside that relates to the website in general. So this aside for the section could be extra information, like I'll go back to Jennifer McGuire's site in a minute and show you. She could use the aside as the list of all the products that she's been talking about. But then you have this aside for the website that could be used for sister sites or affiliate links or other things like that that relate more to the website and not to the specific content of the section. So it would also be a good place for a gallery of photos, advertising links, a newsletter sign up, or site widgets. And that is actually what Jennifer McGuire uses that for a lot. I thought that it was interesting that in her header, I told you before, her main header, she uses several asides. So this could be an aside. This could be an aside, and this would be related to the website. But this is an aside in her code, And then she uses an aside to do this menu for the social media. And I believe she uses an aside to do this logo. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. So the other thing that I was saying is she doesn't do it this way, but you could use an aside, like in my wireframe. That aside could be any of this information that's kind of related but not directly to the content, but especially for this list of supplies. It would be a good place to use an aside. She uses a table if you're interested. Let's go back to page elements. Okay, next one up is nav or navigation. The nav element is for a set of navigational links intended only for major navigation. So not all the links on the page or the site should be included in a nav. So major navigation. In this example, nav is set up for the general site. So this is for the general website, as well as in the main section. It could also have been used in the article. If this was a very lengthy article, you could have used a nav to help jump through specific parts in the article. The footer often also includes its own nav element. I don't have that pictured in this wireframe, but Jennifer McGuire does use it in her site. There's that information. Okay, div. So you see the div here in the blue. So div is a generic container for different sections or divisions in an HTML document. A div should contain related elements that cannot be categorized well as another more specific element. It's often used to group elements for formatting with CSS. I've noticed many coders like to start each body container with a div and then include specific element tags like main, section, and article within that div. And again, that goes back to using CSS. In this example, the div tag would occur right after the body tag and contain all the elements inside. So that would include the header, the section, the article, both asides. And then it would close immediately before the body tag closed and be followed by the footer tag. And that is what they do with Jennifer McGuire's site. I'm going to go right to the top fast. So they have this masthead header, and then they open the body and a div, and then they go into the other specific things like the header and the section and the tables and things like that. So here are those notes. And this is just bringing it back again to show you how everything kind of works together in color. It's much more interesting to look at that way. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, if you want to look further at the site that I used as my real world example, this is the web address. It's jennifermcguireinc.com. But any page can become a working example for you to learn from. And all you have to do is open the page you're interested in and right-click on a PC and select View Page Source. And let me show you how that works. So I'm interested in this page. I'm going to right-click, View Page Source, and you have all the code. And so once you get used to looking at it, it's really interesting to kind of follow along and see what they're doing and how they're accomplishing what's on the site. So thank you for watching. This is Dixie Cravens. Please ask any questions that you have, and I will try my best to answer them.